this is going to be tough to squeeze into a 5 to 6 minute long video, but today we'll be talking about why you need to overexpose your S-Log3 image profile if you're using a Sony camera. So let's dive right into it. So if you own a Sony camera, you'll probably notice that you can choose a lot of different image profiles. One of them is called S-Log3, and that's Sony's logarithmic gamma curve image profile, which is a very aggressive, high dynamic range image profile which contains a lot of the shadow and the highlight information. And I know this is the highlight and that's the shadow. So we use this image profile to get the highest dynamic range possible, and this is done in a way where the camera is transforming the sensor data information, logarithmizing it, squeezing it into a compressed video file. Now we're still working with compressed encoded videos, not raw video data, making the file sizes smaller and easy to work with, and you end up with an image that looks like this. Now this of course is meant for color grading in post-production, and first you need to basically bring it back into a linear or into a natural looking style, and then on top of this you can add any sort of stylized cinematography looking, look to your videos. The problem, however, starts if you expose it wrong. So if you're looking at your light meter and you're exposing it for the correct exposure, you will end up with a very dark looking image, which means that you will have to lift everything up, bring up the shadows, and introduce a lot of the digital noise. S-Log3 is very noisy compared to any sort of other image profile that I've came across, and it's very tough on the color. So if your Sony camera only records 8-bit colors like my Sony A7 III does, I can record 10 bits externally, but internally it's only 8 bits. Now that means that I have only 255 shades of red, green and blue, altogether around 16 million colors, which is just enough for the color correction. So basically from transforming the logarithmic look into a linear look, and then any additional aggressive color grades, saturations and contrasting is going to result in color banding, because there was not enough colors recorded to be able to push them apart and still have a nice gradient going from a dark red to a bright red or from a red to green. Now how does overexposing help with this? If you overexpose your S-Log3 videos, you're basically doing two things. You're recording brighter shadows, which means that in post-production you're going to be toning them down, hiding a lot of the digital noise. And secondly, if you're overexposing, you're actually introducing a more contrasted looking video file, meaning that in post-production you will not have to add additional contrast and saturation, at least not as much as if you were underexposing or exposing it correctly based on the light meter. So using the light meter for your S-Log3, for instance, is completely useless. This is why it's much more advisable to use the histogram or the waveform if you can. So on my Sony A7 III, I'm actually using my smartphone as a video monitor, and I've connected them both with the USB-C cable, and I'm using the Monitor Plus app. If you guys are interested in this app, I have a link down in the description, and I've made a lot of videos on this topic, so make sure to check those out as well. So by using my smartphone as an external monitor with this app, I can actually use a waveform. Now I'm exposing this shot, for instance, so that my face, which is the most important thing in the frame, sits in the middle of the waveform, and that as a result means that I'm really overexposing it. If I look at the light meter, I'm 2+ stops overexposed right now, but my face sits in the middle of the waveform. And that's pretty much the only advice that you need for exposing any type of video shot. Make sure that the subject stays in the middle of the waveform and you're good to go. Even if it means that the highlights or the shadows are going to be crushed or overblown, as long as the subject is exposed correctly, you will have the easiest job in the world. But if you still have to choose between overblowing the highlights or crushing the shadows, I would always crush the shadows and not overblow the highlights in the end result, so in the end overall color grade. So let me know down in the comments what type of image profiles you're using on your cameras and how you're overcoming any sort of problems that you're having. Also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel if you're new, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.